Correct, yeah.
Jim, would you mind just repeating that so the people out in Zoom land can hear it?
That was a three variances and one pool cover. And they were all approved. One was approved, and I guess two have not been approved. Yeah.
Questions for ZBA tonight?
Saw an email regarding some proposed construction in the Castle Park area on a sloped portion of the dune. Has that come before the board yet?
We have not made application of it. We are very well aware of it, tracking it for better part of 2 years now. And eventually that particular parcel is a tax sale parcel that was purchased. It has no road frontage. So ZBA will have the pleasure of dealing with it eventually because it doesn't meet the road frontage requirement of our ordinance. And then at that point, we'll trigger public noticing.
Thank you.
I also tell everybody who asks about it, though, they also will need a critical dune permit. So it's possible to go to the state of Michigan website and sign up for any notifications through the critical dune processing that you can automatically receive notice of when they make application for a permit. Once again, we have not seen anything in writing.
Okay, thanks, Ed.
I've had phone conversations with the owner.
I think Eagle has to be involved in that.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
so,
yeah.
Any other questions for ZBA tonight? Seeing none, that takes us to Parks Commission. There's Jeremy. Welcome.
Good evening. Yes, past Parks Commission meeting. Basically, we got our results back from the survey. I have to give a good shout out to Ann Brand, who did a wonderful job getting all that compiled. I'd have to say what really was quite outstanding, the amount of responses that we got this year. There's 211 basically respondents. 205 were actual surveys that were completed. You know, it's quite an improvement over what was the very last survey that was out there. I'd have to say probably a lot has to do with the fact that get Jim Hayden getting out in the realm of social media and just kind of get the attention out there. So we had a chance to kind of go over the results and really quite happy with what we were seeing with that. Definitely good chance to measure the pulse of what the residents really want to see done in the parks. You know, some of our highest scoring areas, of course, turned out to be kind of our bike paths of all things. And I kind of made mention a little bit of that last meeting too. You know, the Township Beach kind of coming in not too far behind that. A lot of people wanting to get better ingress, egress out from that. Did reach out, as I kind of mentioned before, to get some bids as well on the stairs. Something we can look into to see as an option, something we can probably build into our 5-year plan. But rest of it was just kind of continuing on with that. We're kind of the point now where we're getting the last bid in, and I think we're going to have a little respite this up and coming Wednesday, so we can get a chance to really get everything compiled together. So when we meet in November, we can hopefully get everything wrapped up with that. So that pretty much about the long and short about our excitement for the most part. So I don't know if anybody's good. Oh.
So just so I heard you right, the number one response was bike paths. People like the bike paths.
People really like and utilize the bike paths. So it's definitely a big hit. And yeah, I must say I use them quite a bit too. So I can see that. But yeah, I guess I don't know if any of you have any questions or
Comments on pickleball?
You know, there were some actual feedback from pickleball. Definitely very positive stuff, which is good. There was people looking for ideas of, hey, if we're going to be able to add some, and whether or not the different grant that we've applied for already, improving the Township Hall Park here. If it is a case something like that does go through, then hey, if that's something that people are excited about, why not get a little bit more for it? So that was definitely a win.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on, I haven't had a chance to be down to the beach.
Yeah.
What is the issue down at the beach access? Is it the stairs being covered up by the dune or what?
It is predominantly the fact that it is kind of covered up by the dune, at least one section of stairs. Biggest thing that we had for the longest time is that there was an end holding piece that the township did not own. And that was the biggest reason why we had one flight of stairs going up from the parking area. Then you'd kind of head west, but then you'd take a sharp turn south, head up top of another dune, and then back west down to the beach just to get around that end holding. Well, the section go south up to the secondary dune is what would always get kind of covered up, completely non-existent. And now that we actually lay claim to that end holding, now it's kind of thinking about taking the path of least resistance that people have been doing for years, kind of trespassing over what was that end holding. But now being able to go up the flight of stairs from the parking area, up the first dune, walk straight west, and then there's a second portion where you can come down. That's kind of the bowl area where we've been kind of working pretty diligently about getting beach grass planted, doing what we can to help stabilize the dune around there. But if we can get a flight of stairs there, that will further help stabilize that dune. So
When you say we lay claim to it, do we own it or?
we do now actually currently own it. That was basically through one of the trust fund grants. And something Al did a great job getting put together and everything else that gave a chance to buy that, along with 3 other parcels too that are adjacent to it that would really help improve the parking area. So that's going to be kind of one of those things to look at in the 5-year plan. So,
What are they gonna do with the existing stairs then?
well, the existing stairs, and this is something that we'll probably can talk about a little bit too. The big section that basically comes up and down from the primary dune to the lake. That section, of course, is a good 30+ years old. It's getting pretty sad shape. There are parts of it, especially 3/4 of the way up, that are pretty much degraded, very soft. You can see where some of the stringers for the stairs are just totally gone. So ideally, what I'd like to see, if we can get something implemented in the new section, pretty much see what we can do about getting rid of that. Maybe in a way, actually keep the upper perch. Because when you go to the very top there, that whole deck kind of overlook area is really good shape. And that was kind of one of the different quotes I had put together to go up that southern part of the dune, kind of get to that spot where you get that overlook. So maybe we could be able to maintain that because it's such a wonderful commanding view from there. Maybe rehab what's there, work with that, but then, you know, kind of get rid of what's left of the old stairs because they are kind of present a little bit of a safety hazard in my mind.
And you are getting different quotes from different
They did have,
companies?
actually, the very first one, I was kind of enamored, which I mentioned before about the stairs, something that was featured in the Holland Sentinel. There was a piece that was actually TV8 on it too. Holland developer, products made right here in Holland. And it's really a good versatile set of stairs that actually is built that it can actually work with the shifting of the dune. So it's not like a permanent set. It's
Yeah,
something that you can.
Yeah, I did. I saw
Yeah.
that. I looked into it. Yeah.
So it's something that, hey, I kind of reached out. I kind of want to get something put together with that. It's not the only option out there, but I thought it seemed like a really good option just because the attributes that it has. And price points, I thought seemed reasonable, but I didn't compare it to anything else either. So that may be something we may shop around for too, just to make sure, because we want to get the best value, but we want to get something that's going to be in it for the long haul too.
I guess my question is in the context of stairs.
Yeah.
Is Parks going to be ready with a hard bid so we know what the cost would be before the next grant cycle, which is Q1 of next year? Because in order to send in that grant request
Yeah.
to the state, and at the original stairs under the Coastal Zone Management Grant, but we under any number of the trust fund grants.
Trust fund is April 1 is the deadline to, prior to that, there's gonna be public hearings.
Letters from the
grant
county.
application, Resolutions passed. So,
So,
winter project.
right,
Good one.
we're already in October, so,
Yeah.
I just put it on your radar screen because it's,
Yeah.
you put in the grant application Q1.
Yeah.
And to Al's point, there's a lot of things you got to do to put it in.
Yeah.
And, and if you miss that, you're gone for a year.
Yeah,
So-
we don't want to miss out too much longer, but yeah, any way to kind of get that going. I'd be happy to see some of that information, what needs to be done and whatever steps we need to take, not only as a commission, but, as a township as a whole. It'd be a good direction to go. That is for sure.
Are you saying you need information from Linda or Al in order to start that process? Are you asking?
I've never been involved in doing that before, but if that's something that is taken care of by the chair for parks, I would be more than happy to, facilitate doing what needs to be done with that. But
Well, I can send you a link because I know where to find it.
Yeah.
And if you go through it, then you can look at it from the Parks Commission perspective and start looking at what information you guys need to gather. And, the bids, the pricing, that kind of stuff, because all that builds into the application and that's what takes the time.
no, it'd be good because, hey, if there's money out there for us to grab, why not?
Anything else for Parks tonight?
One question.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the Heiser House, but I think I'm going to reserve that because it's under new business.
Yep.
And talk about it. Just had a few questions about it though. So is that something we want to discuss now or?
I think we can do it under new business, but if you want to ask questions now.
Okay. I guess from your letter, you rejected the proposal from the BA. Is that correct?
Yes. It is something that came up as a motion at Parks, that even though it's not in our hands in order to really make any real decision on it, I guess probably because of the fact that some of the uses was a Parks office, which I don't honestly know why we would need that. But we're kind of looking at different things, especially with the survey results coming back in and knowing and understanding it's not the direction that residents are looking for. Most people you talk to, they love Heiser Farm Park for the trails and love it for the blueberries. You don't hear them say anything about the house. And honestly, as a group, the way we're kind of looking at it, even though it's out of our hands to make the decision, it was not an action item for us to do, but it was a discussion to say, even though what we say may not mean as much anymore. I know we had control long before it went to the building authority, but it was stagnated for an incredibly long time. But it may not be our place to say, hey, this is what we'd like, but we just want to get word out there that, great plan, but we're just not really in supportive of it because we just don't feel it's a good allocation of township funds. If we're going to spend money at that park, let's spend it on the grounds, just like the Heiser family did. I mean, ultimately, that's where they focused, and they made a beautiful farm there. The house is still this. Through it, you still see appliances are from 1940. They were simple people. They were good Dutch people that, the house was a house. That's all it was. They focused their main energy on the land, and that's what parks are about, not homes. So yeah, that kind of was the sentiment in a way. And that's why we just decided, hey, we're going to get the motion on the table. We're going to discuss and we'll put the letter out there to say, great plan, but we're just not in support of it because it just doesn't seem like that's where funds should be diverted.
Was it your intent to recommend removal or demolishing? Which one was it?
That part, of course, didn't come up. We didn't really discuss what, why, or how. If we'd fall back into a citizens committee that was put together that I was asked to be chair of, the sentiment of the group in the end, everybody came in there pretty much with open minds about what they'd like to see, or can we come up with a plan for this house? Because ultimately, who wants to waste a house? I don't think anybody really does. But yet, when you start thinking about it in a very sensible manner, and you just kind of take the sentimental away from it, and you realize that if this is going to be funded via the township to restore this, why are we going to take this kind of money to do something that really doesn't have a really good use? And the committee couldn't find a use. And a lot of them really kind of got to the point of saying, it's to the point that this is proving to be more of a liability for the township, more of a chance that it's going to cost not only to rehab it, but if someone did get hurt there, yeah, we might have good insurance, but do we want to test this insurance? Do we want to find out after we make a claim on it that now we can't apply for it anymore? You know, I mean, I don't know. Honestly, it was just at the end that they thought as a group, maybe it'd be best that this place be torn down. And that was kind of the long and short of it, but those words kind of fell on deaf ears and nothing really became of it.
Anything else on regular parks business tonight? Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.
I'll send you the link on the grant stuff, but that's gonna be it's gonna be a heavy lift for you guys.
Well, that would be good, because I really want to move forward on something that.
Yeah.
Make a difference. Thank you.
Jeremy.
I don't see Chair Story yet. Unfortunately, Chief is not here tonight. He told me and let me know that he had a conflict tonight. We do have his written report. And for those in the audience, last month, month of September, there were 48 calls. In Fillmore, it was 3 fire calls, 8 medical rescue calls. In Laketown, it was 7 fire calls, 24 medical rescue calls. On assist to other departments and agencies, 5 fire calls, 3 assist to Holland, 2 to Saugatuck, and a medical rescue assist to Holland. And then we got an assist, 1 assist from Saugatuck. So the chief apologizes that he couldn't be here tonight, but he wanted to make sure everybody had his report. That takes us for now to citizen comments. And just to set a little expectations, what I'm planned to do is invite citizen comments right now, but when the chair gets here to give his report, I'm going to pause citizen comments, go back, have Chair Story give his report, and then we'll pick up citizen comments wherever we were. So with that, citizen comments on old or new business tonight. Tonight we have the 2024 road work, the FOIA fee appeal, and the Heiser House. Who would like to go first? Come on up.
Volunteer to go first. Stephen Ringelberg, 6721 Vandermeulen. And I'm here to talk about the Heiser House. I don't know if I'm one of the few or if I'm one of the silent majority referred to by Patrick last time. But I support and my wife supports rehabilitating and keeping and preserving the Heiser House. 1968, 70, 69 and 70, my mother used to drive 4 kids around to various blueberry farms and we would pick blueberries. I was 10 years old. One of those places was the Heiser farm. It made me hate blueberries for a long time because it was hot, humid, you got bit by flies and you got stung by bees. And if you ate too many blueberries, you had a bad digestive response. So I met them. I didn't know their name. I just knew they were Old Saugatuck Road and 142nd. But there were other farms who did that as well. So my strong preference in life has been to preserve rather than basically demolish. I think we're quick to demolish things. I think that is a charming house from the outside. I've only seen it from the outside. I called around since I found out this was on the agenda. When I watched a recording of the meeting on Monday night, I called around and talked to 5 people and I got $5,000 in pledges for donations to be used to restore the Heiser residence. I think you give me another 6 months, we might get halfway there. I don't know if I have 6 months. I did something today that I hadn't ever done before, which was go read the conservation easement. I think that you have your own lawyer. I'm handicapped by being a lawyer. So there are references to structures on the property, and there are 3 kinds of structures identified in the easement. One is a building. One is a house. And we're free to demolish any house or building. There's a 3rd kind of structure, which is defined as the residence within the designated residential area. For that one, the conservation easement doesn't give us the right to demolish it. It says within the residence within the designated residential area may be maintained, renovated, or replaced with the following guidelines. There may be only one occupied residence on the property. The residence must be located within the residential area, and the residence may not exceed 4,000 square feet of living space. So I think that if I litigated for 20 years, and people paid me probably way too much to do that. But if I had to litigate this, I would rather be on the side that the township has no right to demolish the residential residents within the residential area. We had the right to demolish the other house. We had the right to demolish the outhouse. We had the right to demolish the chicken cage, all the other structures that were out there. But I don't believe that this conservation easement allows us to destroy it. I think it's worth the money, personally.
Thank you.
Yep.
I see Chair Story, so we're gonna double back to the chair's report. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say congratulations to our Allegan County Board Chair for his election to the chair of the Association of Counties.
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for the accommodation. So I was a little late getting here, but as you, Madam Supervisor, know, the little stretch of Interstate 196 between Hudsonville and Zealand can sometimes become a parking lot. And also thank you for your congratulations. Humbled by the opportunity to help advance local government through the county association. And
Can you speak up just a little? I think some people can't hear. Please.
Sure.
Thank you.
No one elected to public office doesn't want to be not heard. So, no, I'm humbled by the election to the MAC presidency, and we have a lot of good things to do. One of them is a common issue shared by townships, and that is establishing a revenue sharing trust fund for donations from the state. I shouldn't say donations, but our rightful share of sales tax revenue from the legislature. Some of the township revenue sharing, city revenue sharing is protected by part of a constitutional amendment now, but the other part is not. And the county's share of revenue sharing, so to speak, has no constitutional protection. And so the legislation now before, I believe it's the House of Representatives in Lansing, would establish a trust fund into which revenue sharing allocations from sales tax, percentage of sales tax revenue would go, and legislature could only appropriate it for revenue sharing going forward. And I think the Townships Association and Michigan Municipal League and Counties Association are all on the same page, and we're hopeful that gets passed into law. In the past, when we've had budget fluctuations in Lansing, the revenue sharing to counties has kind of been one of those things that gets dropped. And of course, that is a struggle. But before I give my report, I want to introduce myself to Patrick and congratulate you on your appointment to the Township Board. And of course, thank you for your service in the Coast Guard. So a couple of things I do want to share. We are tomorrow going to hold our annual budget hearing and probably adopt our county budget for 2024. It's roughly around $40 million. We have I guess the main items that we've added this year are a new assistant prosecutor position, and also several public safety officers as the court dockets continue to need that attention, and unfortunately some of our criminal activity needs that attention. The other matter I wanted to bring up is that we last week hosted a get acquainted tour for construction contractors who are interested in bidding on redoing our courthouse and half of our county services building as we start construction to provide court space for the 3rd Circuit Court judge that we will elect next year, and also move some of the non-court functions out to our Dumont Lake campus in the space vacated by our mental health operation, which occupies a new building in the city of Allegan on former big box store. And when they moved in, they changed their name from Community Mental Health to On Point to kind of diversify their branding as far as their services. So we hope to let that contract by no later than November 1st. And so that we can get some construction time in before the inevitable return of our white pleasures of winter. The other thing I wanted to say, I was in Lansing today. One of the other reasons I was a little late on some county business, but I stopped by our Senator Nesbitt's office. No longer represents Laketown, but does the balance of Allegan County, and indicated that one of the troubling pieces of legislation that is likely to pass is the one that takes authority away from townships and villages and cities for the siting of solar fields and windmills, and hands that to the Public Service Commission in Lansing. I met with the aide to the senator. Senator Nesbitt was not in, but he said that although their arguments are against it, it does look like it's going to pass. So we'll have a new wrestling match with Lansing folks ahead of us, I guess, as we try to protect the local control over the siting of those facilities. And speaking of changes, we're right now in negotiations with the Wishbone Pet Rescue Association. They have since about 2014 managed our animal shelter. I think we're trying to kind of steer in a new direction with them and maybe bring some of the management function back into the county as a whole. Like I say, we're still in discussion with that organization. Their current contract expires December 31st, but we'll keep you apprised of any changes that brings. And with that, be happy to take questions from you, and at your direction, anybody else in the Laketown citizenry.
I've got a couple questions, but if anybody else on the board has a question first.
Just
Pat?
quick about the revenue sharing. Are you saying that essentially then with revenue sharing, townships would get a certain amount of money? And if so, would that money be earmarked or restricted in any way?
The revenue sharing is not restricted. Townships already get, it's 2%, right, of the sales tax, I think.
There's, well, 2% is earmarked for the schools. Also, we went from 4 to 6% on sales tax.
Okay.
We get a share of the 4% originals, and that's divvied up by population across the state.
That's the constitutional protection.
That's the constitutional. Yeah.
Right. So you already get some that's constitutionally protected. This would expand that protection by putting the discretionary, so to speak, into a trust fund, and also kind of take the discretion away by giving you a greater percentage of the sales tax revenue.
Thank you, sir.
You said you stopped by Senator Nesbitt's office, and it's the legislation grabbing on to what is now local control for our planning commission and our ZBA and anybody who has an ag preservation program. You said it's likely to pass. Is that just in the Senate, or has it already gone through the House?
I don't think it's gone through the House yet. So I think they feel a little more secure in the Senate since their election isn't for a couple of years.
That bill would yank our zoning ability right away from us, so that if somebody wants to come in with a big solar farm, we get to say nothing. That's the problem with when Lansing pulls local control on that, or on one of the last moves they made was toward sand and gravel mining, and tried to yank that too. So,
And
Did
of
that go
course,
through? That did,
sand and gravel
That's
mining,
still-
I don't think it did.
Yes, yeah.
it didn't pass?
not yet.
Still out there.
Right.
Okay.
And the other one, of course, is the seasonal housing,
Short-term rentals.
short-term rentals. Yeah.
All still out there.
The three big ones.
Lurking.
Yeah. So
You haven't heard anything new on when they plan to close out the session, have you?
I did, but not from Lansing. I was at a Holland Chamber of Commerce thing on Friday, and the former Lieutenant Governor Brian Kelly, who's now the president of the Small Business Association, was speaking, and he estimated that its session at least is going to go until November 8th. And you'll be interested in the reason is that he was in a meeting with the Speaker of the House, and they are entertaining on November 8th the Speaker of the Ontario Provincial Parliament that day. So they're gonna be in session.
Pat, you looked like you had another question?
Back to the zoning issue. When you say it would take discretion away from townships, are you saying, is that for commercial zoning, not all zoning?
For the siting of windmills and solar fields.
Only,
Commercial scale.
and sand,
And well, it's another bill.
separate issue?
Not separate issue, but basically sand mining, gravel mining, commercial operations, no local approval required or allowed. Or done, that'd be done by the Eagle. We'll do the review on that and the approval on it. For the commercial scales, energy, solar or wind, Public Service Commission would have the review of process on that.
Does a township have standing to, are we allowed to represent the township? Is the board allowed to represent the township, or is our council allowed to represent the township in fighting those issues?
Well, the laws or the issues when they actually, see, the law is in process.
Understood.
It will likely change from what it looks like today. So when it actually becomes law, if it does. So the whole process of amendments that go through, well, we know right now they've been introduced. I think they're in committee. That's where we're at today. By the time it gets out of committee, if it does get out of committee, there's probably going to things that are going to change to it. And then when the time it actually gets to the governor's desk and sign into law, that's when we'll know what we will be able to do. Most likely, I would hope we have at least have some way of objecting to a proposed use or stating our case on it somehow. But we really don't know until we get further down the road. You can go to State of Michigan website, US House or the House or the Senate, and see the language of the law as it sits today and where it's at in the process. You know, first goes through the committee process. If it makes it out of committee, which is a big step, then it goes to the full house to get an HB assignment of House bills approval. Then it goes over to the Senate, back and forth, vice versa. By back and forth is where the amendments start flying, and something can come out totally different than it was started off as. So until we get to that point, we're just kind of guessing. And we have our own lobbyists. Michigan Association of Counties has their lobbyists. Michigan Township Association have our lobbyists who watch this stuff like hawks. Was advised.
But that's one reason why I asked when end of session was. Just to kind of put a little bit of an end to the uncertainty, at least for this year.
That's just the session. It's not the,
It would come back next year.
right, it's automatically comes back. It's not done with the term of the Congress. That then to be even numbered years? I think.
It's not sine die
It
this
doesn't,
year.
it doesn't die.
Is it sine die this year?
That is exactly, I was just gonna say.
This year?
Yeah,
This
That's,
year?
it's sine die this year because they're arguing about the Republican primary date.
Right.
That's one reason why they're pushing it to do it sooner.
If they do sign a die, which means without day.
It's not an elect,
It is sine die, yeah.
okay. We'll look that up.
That's what they're proposing, is sign a die. And because then only the governor could call the legislature back into session for the agenda that the governor sets out.
Yeah, it's sine die because they need 90 days after sine die to deal with the primary dates.
Right. I know for things to take effect. That's the whole deal, is trying to have some of these laws take effect in time for the elections. But this, let's not waste any time on it.
Bottom line is we've got risk until early November. And in all likelihood, even if it is end of session, the folks that want these things are going to be back next year.
Yeah, can I make one post? on
Yes.
that? And I know we're taking up a lot of time for other things you have, but Al, we talked about the lobbyists. The most effective lobbyists are the people in this room talking to your legislators directly about this issue of local control. So I wouldn't be shy about it when you see them.
Thank you, Jim.
More things, speaking of local control in Lansing, have you heard anything on where Lansing is with the short-term rentals? And being able to regulate them and.
I haven't, but Jim, I haven't been really following the issue real closely, so I can't really speak with any knowledge on that one.
It's stagnant right now. It's not been doing any movement at all. So
Yeah, the only movement is the litigation in Park Township.
Yeah.
And you don't have any update on the excise tax bill on short-term rentals?
I do not.
Okay.
Well, that's new stuff, man.
Yeah, well, yes.
Welcome to the chair of the MAC.
My
But-
pleasure. Good, always good to be here, of course.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming in, and may you have safe and easy travels from this point forward.
Yeah, well, as soon as the freeway gets, the orange barrels are removed, we'll all be better off. But, and the road will be better. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
That brings us back to citizen comment. So who's next? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Felipe Ramirez. I live in 4025 64th Street. I've been a Laketown resident for a lengthy time. I love this community, and I love you guys that you have done a sensational job. Now, we're not going to reinvent the wheel about the Heiser house. My wife and I, we took many, many walks through that property, and it's beautiful. The grounds are beautiful. Unfortunately, the house is beyond to be bring back to the original state. Is way far. We let it go too many years. Mold is no for 100% that mold is there in those walls, and it has been a high risk for many years. Fortunately, nobody got hurt in that home so far. You were going to extend the high risk by rebuilding the home. The gentleman just mentioned a lawsuit is a possibility that somebody gets hurt because that house is not guarded 100%. If you have a property and you have a pond in your property, you better make sure to fence the pond, because if a kid goes into the pond and drowns, guess who's going to be liable? Is the owner of the property. If you have the home and you don't fence it and protect it, and that's another expense, most of the Laketown residents, they are not for the rebuilding of that home. And that is a fact. Now, throughout the whole nation, there are many fire departments and communities where they have homes in that state. You know why they do it? They give it to the fire department for 5 drills, and they tape it. They do 3, 4, 5 drills and demolish the high risk place. And fire departments, they love to drill in those homes. They can fill them with the smoke. SCBAs going into the interior, do their drills, rescue, fire, whatever. They have smoke machines, and they love it. And many communities do that. And it's going to be put to good use. Now, after all this is done, they can put a plaque there with the memory of the Heiser family. Thanks to them, we have that beautiful property. But that plaque is not going to be high risk. That home, you rebuild it, it'll be a high risk yet. Fortunately, nothing has happened today. Thank you so much for your time. That's my opinion.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Oops. Sorry, guys, I didn't think I'd be speaking today. I definitely didn't think I was going to be speaking about Heiser House today, but I did want to clarify something. My neighbor behind me who talked about the blueberry fields, and thankfully for all the money that they've been able to collect for the Heiser House or the blueberry fields. And one of the things that he mentioned on the West Michigan Land Conservancy, the contract that they had on there, he's talking about the language on the house. You guys know I've been talking to the Land Conservancy since March of this year, all of them. And I don't have all my documents pulled up, but I pulled up the first thing, and I've been talking to Chris Long because Al had been sending messages to the Conservancy about what we can do, and the word demolish is even in the proposal. And the first thing I pulled up from Chris Long, who is the contact that they've been working on with the Heiser House. I was asking about the security of the house and the danger, and Al, the township, having to work with them about the plan to even demolish or remove the house, because they're very specific about what you can touch. They don't want to damage any trees. And I quote from Chris Long, it's a very short text or an email from 6/12/23. No problem, glad to help. That could have issues, especially with older houses and paint materials. Even if new and lead-free, we wouldn't soil to have paint chips. Any renovation or demolition should have best practices to remove impact like paint debris from roofing, windows, etc., such as work mats, drop cloth, etc. Better safe than sorry. Cheers, Chris. Via an email that I've received, he's already acknowledged that the home itself can be demolished. He's the contact for us. So while I respect an attorney's opinion, the Conservancy has already acknowledged that this can be done. And just as a side note, because I did notice that our township attorney was here, and I know that we're going to be talking about the FOIA fee, but I'm hoping maybe, because I know that I've sent emails December 28th and December 3rd, October 3rd regarding laws. And then I know that one of my neighbors spoke last week, October 4th. So you guys have been aware since September 28th of some of the legalities about how motions between the Parks Commission, the Building Authority, and the board who owns the Building Authority. So I'm hoping to maybe hear something about that also. Thank you.
Thank you. Next in the room. Good evening.
Hi. I've got a little cold, so I wrote everything down so I don't forget it. Oops, if I have it right. Mary Jo Bertolino. I am a resident. I am against the renovation of the Heiser House. Our town has already begun to spend money on this, and many residents do not see the value in this investment. If I were buying the house, me personally, I would tear down that house. I love old houses. But I would tear down that house and build something else. It's a potential money pit. With the already significant estimate of $125,000 for renovation of Heiser, what happens when the contractors run into unforeseen problems? With old houses, you're bound to have issues that no one saw. Again, I feel the cost of this project outweighs the benefit to the community. With limited municipal funds in our community, I have further concerns regarding town purchase of the Walter House. I don't understand why we apparently paid significantly above market value. How does this expenditure help our community, and how much more will the community have to pay in additional finance charges? There are many things in our community that need funding right now, and one of them is our own resident 501c3 Fell in Love Farms. Operating restrictions placed on Fell in Love have had an extreme effect, causing major loss of income from farm visits, field trips, and grants. In addition, losses from COVID have had further negative impact. I'm asking for support from the remaining COVID relief fund, as Fell in Love is exactly the type of recipient intended for those funds. I would like to know how already dispersed funds from the COVID relief fund have been distributed, and what might remain available for distribution to Fell in Love Farm. When does remaining undispersed money have to be returned? What must Fell in Love Farm do to secure funding? In my opinion, you should tear down the Heiser House, sell the Walter House, and support Fell in Love Farm from remaining COVID relief funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room tonight? Good evening.
My name is Tom Drenick, 3964 65th Street. When the first gentleman was up here, it's nice that people would donate money to redo the Heiser farm. But then it stops there. Once it's redone, who's going to, are they willing to continue funding to keep that going, so the taxpayers of the township don't have to pay for it. That's a question that came to my mind. And I can say I've talked to a lot of people too that are against keeping that house. Just like I've heard a lot of people say they've talked to a lot of people that are for keeping that house. But that doesn't really mean anything. You've got proof right here that I've seen in the past meetings when you brought up the Heiser House for the meetings, that there were more people in person here that were against the house than were for the house. That I would say would be a good example of basically the township. They are coming down here to let you know they don't want that house restored. The people, there's not many people that come down here to say that they do want it restored. Very, very few.
Thank you. Others in the room tonight? Jim, anybody online? Good evening.
Evening. Sure. I have a question first. Does anything that us residents say right now in comments, does that get put into the minutes at all?
We handle the minutes you know what our minutes look like, Mitra. So yes,
Okay,
they'll be
so-
recorded that people spoke on various topics.
Oh, it will be the people that spoke? Okay. You know me, Mitra Delaney, and I have written a letter already. And so you really don't need me to repeat what is in my letter. I would like, again, to agree with the park commissioners who are elected officials, with Jeremy saying that they desire for the Heiser House to be torn down. And so I would like to also agree with that. I would like no further money spent on it. And again, I think it's wonderful. I typed $5,000 by 5 people, it's $25,000. But again, it's the continuous care of a house. And I too don't agree with what has been proposed by the building authority. That is a tiny, tiny house. And I suggest anyone who has not walked through it, do walk through it. I mean, it's a cute, tiny house. But again, for the wisdom to what to do with it for the whole township, I agree with our parks commissioners that it be torn down or again, removed, whatever you all decide.
Thank you. Last call in the room tonight on older new business. Jim, anything? All right, then we'll go ahead and move on. Oh, I'm sorry. Come on up. Thanks, Jim.
I'm here to address the Heiser House, but I'm here once again to address the work of the Black Gold Paving Company. Last month when I was here, I was cut off abruptly. I couldn't express my concerns, and I was told to call Mr. Meshkin, which I did. And he informed me that the work is bought and paid for. Nothing you can do. We already paid him, work is done. Okay. So I said, what if I got 25 citizens together about that road on like Maple Lane and got them together and filed a class action lawsuit? He said, well, you can do that, but you probably won't get very far. Well, probably have to agree with him. It's like David fighting Goliath, the road commission. Pretty tough to fight them. I am thankful for Mr. Johnson here to come to Maple Lane and actually look at the work they did. And he just saw part of it. There's spots on that road where there's actually ponding of water, sits 1.5 inches, 2 inches wide, 4 foot by 10 foot. It's not just my approach, it's the whole road. The question is, were these people vetted properly? I know the road commission recommended them according to Mr. Meshkin. Were they vetted beyond that? Or did you just take their word? Did the board take their word and say, well, they said this is the company you should go with. They were the low bid, which normally you take the low bid and toss it. But you went with them. It's my understanding from my neighbor that this was their first rodeo. This was their first paving job. I said, wow. I didn't know about that. You go on the website, it's Black Gold Transport. Okay. So I wonder how well these people were actually vetted. And were they paid before the work was done? Were they paid after the work was done? They shouldn't have been paid, period. The job is so far inferior. I had Mr. Jim Story come, the Allegan County Commissioner, and look at it. And he's looked at it and he says, yeah, doesn't look so good, but I'm not a road expert. I'll tell you what, 10-year-old kid could see that was no good. So the bottom line is, what is the pecking order? How do you procure a company like that and say, yeah, go ahead, do the work, and who's going to provide the oversight? According to Mr. Meshkin, the road commission. According to my neighbor, there was one guy and he was on 64th Street when they did that, and he measured the depth of the road. The rest of it fell by the wayside. When I looked and came out of my house, there was no oversight. There was nobody from the road commission, none. And these people were in such an ungodly hurry. They were in there with their bobcats, not with the tire bobcat, the regular, yeah. And they came in there and the guy is spinning donuts and he's going like hell hath no, you know. I mean, I'm thinking, yeah, these guys are in a hurry. They came in too late. The work should have been postponed. And the thing of it is, what happens now?
Thank you.
According to the chief engineer, yeah, it was not satisfactory, and that there's a liquid charge to take care of. And what's the liquid charge? Where does that money go? It's actually dollars of some sort, some amount. Where does that go? Anybody have an answer? A liquid charge? You do?
No, I'm saying we try and give everybody the same amount of time. So unfortunately, we were at the end of the appointed time on that.
You don't do that.
So
I'm just saying, I'm just saying, where does it go from here? What am I supposed to do? My approach is falling apart. What are we supposed to do? Just let them just say, well, I guess that's just tough. Eat it, live with it.
I will reach out myself to the road commission. That's all I can promise to do, because the road commission is in charge of the contract, but I will reach out myself.
I will verify it's a pretty crappy job they did. I saw it and I took pictures and that it's.
Okay.
So everybody agrees it's not a good job.
That road should completely be redone. Their work completely tore out and redone the entire road.
Okay.
And I should have to have a rebate on my taxes. I'm not getting what I paid for.
Anyone else on agenda items tonight?
Nancy Vorhorse, 6265 138th Avenue. I just do want to address the Heiser House. I believe Mr. Jeremy said that there were 200 and some surveys returned on the Parks Commission. How many of them were?
Please talk to the board. Please.
Okay. How many of those were in favor of restoring the Heiser House out of 211? One. That should make your decision pretty easy.
Anyone else tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to our actual new business because we don't have old business. First thing on the agenda tonight is the 2024 road work. Al,
Have the recommended road work in front of you for 2024. The main project, big project for the year, 145th Avenue from 60th to 66th Street, 3 miles of resurfacing. Another smaller project on 61st north of 147th up to the city limits, and actually will go into the city limits also, but the city will be paying for their share of that part of the road. Bike path on 147th, resurfacing and repair from where we let off 2 years ago near Walters Woods, going along 147th to the west, and then a part on 64th Street from 147th to the north. And then the new bike path on Blue Star Highway from exit 41, going to just east of 62nd Street by the Shangri-La Mobile Home Park. That would be of course, in our regular dust control and the roadside mowing. Total cost opinion on those projects is $1,260,000. Also of note on there is that we are asking the road commission to begin an engineering work for the reconstruction of 61st Street north of 138th Avenue for the year 2026. They need a couple of years' time to work on the design, engineering, survey work, etc.
okay, do we have a motion on the proposed 2024 road work?
I know we talked about this at length at workshop.
We should get a motion on the table first.
Oh, okay. I was gonna just say that on motion that we accept the 2024 proposed road work.
We have support.
Or
Okay, now discussion, Jim?
No, I think I'm satisfied with what we're looking at for 2024.
Other comments on the proposed road work?
you have a question. The road work that's been done that I've driven on, at least on the main roads, appears to have been high quality. Was that done by Black Gold or was that done by a different contractor?
Which road?
Say like
64th Street north of 142nd to 32nd this year was done by Black Gold.
Okay.
They also did the other roads in the Cherrywood subdivision area. They did the Chinholt subdivision, which is 64th and 147th, the northeast corner, that little subdivision in there where Dewey lives.
Did they do like Forest Beach?
Forest Beach, no, Forest Beach is a private.
They did their
private
own
development.
That was
so they didn't do
Tulip City.
Tulip City. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't do that. They did, I think that was it for their projects for the year. Black Gold also did work for us in 2021. 2022 was the most recent year they worked. 2023, this year, somebody else got the bids. They received the bids in 2022. In 2021, Black Gold did 142nd Avenue from 60th Street to the cul-de-sac. They did 141st Avenue, 60th to 61st, and a little bit of 61st from 141st to 142nd, all on the east side of the township, just off of Grasscup off 60th Street. So they have worked for us in the past. I will fully acknowledge that the work last year was not their best work. They took on too much work and they were working too late in the year. And that was a problem.
I would think, I don't know if this is allowed or out of line, but I would think that given the amount of contracts that we give them, that they would be amenable to correcting some of these issues.
We don't give them any contracts. We don't own any roads. The road commission signs the contract. We have basically a sheet of paper that if you approve the road work for 2024, I will send it to the road commission. They'll put that in their own form of a work order. You sign the work order. That's our involvement.
We have no leverage.
No leverage whatsoever. We do not own any roads. If we want them resurfaced, we get to pay for them. Black Gold did get stung pretty hard by this in 2022 by the road commission for liquidated damages for being so late in the year. That did save us some money, but the reality is it's not a good situation. I totally agree. I've had many discussions with the road commission about this.
So they're aware of the.
Oh, yeah, they're
residents'
fully
complaint.
aware of this. The road commission is fully aware of this. That's where we're at. But our relationship is with the road commission. We have no contact with the contractor.
Do we have a ballpark idea what it would cost to resurface Maple Lane?
I haven't even thought about that. No, I'd have to figure that out. It would be quite a bit. We're talking sort of the tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah. Now, some things can be done to do repair work. It is possible to go in with devices and heat up asphalt and relay it down again. That's possible, but the road commission at this point is not anxious to do anything with it. Maybe Linda can, if she wants to talk to them over there and see if she can make any progress. Might have more influence than I do.
Just a quick question. Did I hear you say that we make the recommendation to the road commission and the road commission does the work? Is that what I heard?
Not quite. We send in what we think we want the road commission to spec and bid and contract for.
Yeah.
But then commission handles actually the engineering spec, sending it out for bids, writing the contracts. The bids come back to us. You'll recall that we get a tab sheet that shows the bids that come in. So if we saw Black Gold on that tab sheet, we could basically tell the road commission, we're not interested in that bid. So that's where our going forward influence lies. That and picking the roads on this sheet that we do based on their current condition.
Black Gold did bid on our 2023 road work. We had 3 bidders, Black Gold, Michigan Paving, which got the bid with a low bid. I'm not sure who the third one was. So they did bid on it. They were not low bids. So they were not in the consideration. Had they been low bid, we would have said that's just a secondary.
Are we allowed to somehow advocate on behalf of the resident with the road commission to tell them that we are, we're on one hand, we're satisfied with some of the work they did, but when they do poor work for our residents, is there some mechanism? Do we have some leverage to communicate both to the land commission, to the road commission and by inference to Black Gold that we are considering, or that we would use our leverage to not recommend they get our business unless they make good this residence?
We could certainly, we really have no leverage. We can certainly make that statement to them. You know, I mean, you could certainly say that we don't want to even look at a bid ever again from Black Gold unless they fix this. You can say that. Sure.
The way it works
But Black Gold, I mean, the road commission is quite well aware that we are not pleased with this work.
So we send the road commission the roads that we want to have done. They put it out to bid, typically to 4 or 5 asphalt companies. They send us those bids. They might recommend one of them or say, here's the low bid, but ultimately we get to pick. And we could say, am I correct, Al? We could say, if they're saying we think Black Gold's the one to go with, we could say, no. I think we
could protest that.
One other thing, just for Pat's information, keep in mind that like Black Gold may have done part of 64th. We don't have anything in that because that's a full-on county road. There's
It's been money on that.
yeah, there's a whole different The
county
roads are
primary,
divided.
local roads, the
Yeah.
difference of who pays for it.
I remember that from the plan, yeah.
Yep.
I'm just looking for a way to beat them over the head.
In January of this next year, usually the first week of January is our annual meeting with the road commission, where elected officials are welcome to come sit down and look at what they're planning to do for the county-wide roads for 2024. We usually send at least one representative there. We can have more than one if you'd like to go and talk about this issue. I wouldn't doubt that there are other townships that had the same issue. They took on too much work. As simple as that, with not enough staff, and they rushed and did a lousy job.
And just, Al, I was at that meeting and I did bring up the
Mhm.
black gold.
Very
thing,
good, okay.
And they said they were aware of it. They said, yep, we know it. Doesn't fix the problem for Randy.
Doesn't fix the problem, doesn't, but we've not just sat back and gone, oh, well, we did everything we can so far to try to get a better outcome out of this.
Jim, you got something else?
No, I'm just saying, it just seems that we should have some better leverage, but I understand.
With that, we've got a motion and support on the table for the, what, I understand that, Mitra. Jim, we're. Okay. With that, we've got a motion and support on the table to approve the list of the 2024 proposed road work and send that to the road commission for spec and bid. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We'll send that in. See what the bids come back like. That takes us to our next item of new business, which is the FOIA appeal. Al?
We received a Freedom of Information Act request from a James Smithers on Butternut Drive, north side of Holland, for a quantity of emails from both myself and township board members. I sent Mr. Smithers an estimate of cost of what it would cost for me to do that work. That estimate came in at 3 hours, excuse me, for a total of $210. Before we began the work on and answering the FOIA, Mr. Smithers objected to the amount. That is the FOIA appeal that you have in front of you. This was a very complex email, a FOIA to respond to. I am the only employee of the township capable of doing the work to respond to this FOIA. The other option would have been send it out to a tech firm to do the work to respond to the FOIA, which would have cost a significantly higher hourly rate than my rate. So Mr. Smithers is appealing the charges.
And just to get it on the table, you did the work and it actually came in lower than the estimate
I actually did the work and it came in at 2.5 hours time and
for a grand total of.
$175.
So what we're dealing with, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, what we're dealing with then is the appeal. The appeal was drafted before the actual work was done. But now the appropriate amount in question is the 175.
Oh, yeah, that would be correct.
So with that, what's the pleasure of the board?
Yes, John, what the board's options are and to kind of, I want to ask John to come to make sure that we do this properly. We have never had to do this before. Never had an appeal of a FOIA charge before. This is the first. So I thought we better have counsel here to make sure we dot the i's, cross the t's.
Don, you want to walk us through it, please?
Sure, happy to do so. So FOIA is a state statute, sets out in details a statutory process for how government will provide, records of government to the public. It allows in certain instances to be able to charge a fee when the cost of labor and searching for documents is quote unquote unreasonably high. In order to charge the fee, you have to have a local policy. You guys do have local policies and procedures, which, as Al mentioned, follows the statutory language to a T in saying that when the costs are unreasonably high, and most communities say that's something over $50, that it's reasonable to charge the person requesting the document, the cost that it will put on the township in order to, take the time and effort to go through the documents. And the statute says, I'm consistent with Al said, that's has to be charged regardless of the person, of whether the person is able to do it or not, at the rate of the individual who is the lowest paid, who's capable of doing the work. In this case, Al did the analysis, and Ron and I agree that he is the person who's whose rate is the lowest capable of doing the analysis. He did a good faith estimate, saying how long he thought it would take him to respond to the FOIA. He did the work, I understand, and actually understand, it came in lower. The township will only see that money if the fee is actually paid. Otherwise, the person won't get the documents. Essentially, the fairness in charging the fee is to make sure that the rest of the residents and taxpayers in the township aren't paying for one person's particular interest. And, the township will never be made whole in this process, but it's just a way to kind of even it out a little bit. Like I said, Ron and I reviewed this. We think everything is up to T. If Mr. Smithers is here tonight, is he? I'm not seeing anybody. We would have given him an opportunity to say, if he had anything additional concerning the appeal. But this is a statutory process. It's also laid out in the guidelines that were adopted by the township. Everything looks like it was done to mark, and I wouldn't, in terms of what your options are, you could disagree, you could waive it, or you could affirm it, for the reasons that I've given. So ultimately, that decision is you. But again, it's a dollar amount that statute provides for in FOIA to make sure that although we're giving out the documents that people have a right to, it's not done at the expense, and ultimately, it's sort of a cost zeroing aspect to be able to get the fees when they're unreasonably high. So I'd be happy to take any questions, but that's the long and short of it.
Questions for John from the board?
Oop.
Pat? Oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
Go ahead, Jim.
So we do have options. The township actually has options for this. However, there is in place. Is that what you're saying? We can do whatever we would like?
Would say that that you ultimately would have discretion to waive the fee. I'm not suggesting you should do that because you want to treat this requester the same way you would treat like any requester. And if you have the next person come on, the 210 or with the reduced amount, they add up over time. I mean, Linda could tell you the amount of effort and consultation with the township attorney when the need is. The township is never going to be made fully whole for that. So, it's completely reasonable to take advantage of what the statute allows you to do and charge the fee. And you want to be consistent as to all requesters.
Have you been involved in issues where you thought the fee was excessive? And if so, what was considered excessive?
Fee appeals don't come up all that often in my experience. I had one recently in a city in a neighboring county where the request was for, they wanted to look for police reports and identify like particular words within police reports. Well, our, the city's software, kind of like way that they house the police reports didn't have any capabilities to do searching in that manner. So it would really have required the person to print it out and read all of them. That was going to be a huge amount of time. The person, the individual in the police department, FOIA coordinator, calculated it would be, I think it was, $3,000-$4,000. That board upheld that fee because it adds up, that's real money. And You often see some huge fee estimates, I think, when you have groups coming in, like, you know, if the ACLU or, you know, sometimes you see like third party, like commercial entities coming and asking for big, like sort of document dumps. And, you know, that's not really what FOIA was made for, but like certainly the township residents shouldn't have to eat the cost. So you see a fee and the fee follows the statute. Again, it's the lowest person capable of doing the work. And it's built in 15-minute quarterly increments. You know, so it's built into the statute to be pretty fair. And, you know, I have never seen an instance where, you know, I think fee appeals are fairly rare because I think the people understand that there's like, you know, a cost involved in what they're asking for. And certainly I am not familiar with much case law on it, you know, going kind of up the chain. I would say they don't come up very often.
Do we have a motion on the fee appeal? Do we want to uphold the fee or do something else?
Motion that we uphold the reduced fee.
175?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion to uphold the fee at $175. Do we have support? Okay, I heard Jim first, so I'll give it to Jim and Jim on that motion to uphold the fee for $175. John, you recommend a roll call on that?
Yeah, I think we should do a roll call just to serve the record.
Okay, Al?
Start over here for change. Delaney.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Howell.
Aye.
Johnson. Aye. Dietrich.
Aye.
That motion carries. One thing that on the FOIA appeal that, or the FOIA issue too is, just so that everybody knows, it's a rare day that the township actually charges. You know, that we handle a lot more FOIAs and it's very simple. If somebody needs a copy of a permit or something like that, and they just go out the door. So just so that everybody's aware of that.
Probably have many more FOIAs we don't charge anything for than we charge. But if it comes to the point where we've got to do serious work, gathering emails, going to the basement archives, digging through minutes and look for those, and it takes staff time, we charge. Like I said, if a resident comes in, wants a copy of some onesie, twosie things, or, you know, shoot it off the computer, here it is, we don't even charge for the paper.
And, you know, Al will reach out now to the person to, you know, confirm in writing, you know, with or I can do it, but Al can do it as well.
Yep.
The board's decision tonight and, you know, tell them the $190 is $175. And at that point, he gets under the statute, he gets 48 days in order to pay it. And so if he doesn't pay it, it'll just go away. Yeah, but the work has been done. So because of kind of the weirdness of the timing of the appeal here. But in any event, you know, it will be settled.
Quick question, on the actual form determination, there's 3 boxes: fee waived, reduced, or upheld. Since we're actually not reducing the actual fee, we're just accommodating the true amount of time. Is that a reduction or is it an upheld? Just so that we do it accurately.
I think that we can call it a reduction,
Okay.
And just have in the written basis for the determination be that,
Reduce.
and
the
I don't think
actual-
we need to take another vote or anything. Yeah, just reflect for the record, reduce for the actual amount. That's part of the minutes that during the discussion here.
Well, to Al's point, I just want to make sure that we check the right boxes and do it
Yep.
correctly.
Yep.
All right, that takes us down to the issue with regard to the Heiser House, and we've heard comment tonight. You wanted it on the Jims wanted it on the agenda, so I'll turn to Jim Johnson first.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say I'm not in favor of spending taxpayer dollars to renovate the Heiser House for a variety of reasons. I guess the number one reason is that, you know, I know who put me in this seat, and it's the taxpaying residents that elected me. And it's pretty clear that by a landslide, I don't know if it's 100-1 or 200-1. We heard that from the Parks survey, that people are not in support of spending their taxpayer dollars to renovate the Heiser House. And so I could go on, but I won't for now, but that's where I stand, and I do respect the gentleman that is for it. I only received, I was bombarded with emails from residents, and yeah, some of them were the same 8 or 10 people that we hear from all the time, but many of them were from couples, husbands and wives that I've never heard from before. They were people that had just reached out and felt strongly about it. We had our subdivision annual picnic on Sunday, this past Sunday, and we had a lot of our neighbors there, and I had a chance to ask many of them about it and get their feelings on it. And I didn't come across anyone that felt we should do it. So, and there's really 2 costs that would be involved to the township if we were to do it. It's the initial renovation cost, which is probably closer to $250,000 than the numbers that we've heard. And then it's the annual expenses, monthly annual expenses that would never go away. Those are forever expenses. And those would be utilities, electricity, heat, air, insurance, maintenance. People will probably have to snow plow it, which we haven't done in the past, repairs, security. I don't know. I'm thinking that's at least $2,000 a month, just for all the things that we'd have to do just to keep it going. And I just don't feel that the township should be in the museum business. And that's kind of what it feels like. The plan is to make a museum out of it. And I think if I put on my fiduciary hat as the treasurer of the township, I can't find myself supporting this. And I don't think there's enough support on the board to be able to, move forward with renovating the Heiser House, at least now and or in the future. But that's my position.
Jim?
Yeah, for me, this is kind of like resurrecting something that was already dead from the very beginning. I mean, you had a committee that made their recommendation to not go forward with this, and you resurrected it again because you didn't get the answer that you wanted. And then we sent it over to another entity to see what they could do with it. Well, it was already, in my mind, already dead on arrival. So, we do have an option. We do have a fiduciary responsibility to the residents of Laketown, and they also did vote me in my position, and I answer to the residents and nobody else. So, and this board. So, I mean, you all know what my feelings about the Heiser House is, from the very beginning, and I'm holding on to that. And I think we should not supply, there should be any money given at any point from this point on to the Heiser House to have it rebuilt. It should be, in my mind, taken down.
I do understand the concern, like the financial expenses that would come with the Heiser House. I do have a contrarian view. I work at Felt Mansion, so I interact with people who come and see historic places. I've met people from all over the country. It's people who like history. It's people who like architecture. It's people who love old homes. So I regularly engage and talk to people who have a love of history, and I'm one of those people. I think there's value in having a tangible reminder of a World War II era home that children can see. It's different. It didn't live the same as we live. I think there's value in that. I would like to see if we could try to do fundraising so that it didn't cost the taxpayers. I don't know if that's possible, but I would like to try to save it with the compromise of it not costing the taxpayers. That's my opinion.
As the new guy on the block, I came in with a fairly open mind. I had my position on Heiser House was forming, but I was willing to listen to those individuals who spoke glowingly of the house and of the value of restoration. However, as my colleague said, and as two of my colleagues have said, we're here on behalf of you folks. And having heard loud and clear what the resident's position is, and then having visited the house myself, even if I were sympathetic towards restoration, as I said during my interview, as someone who has probably seen every This Old House episode, I could just see the crew from This Old House saying, folks, this is not possible. And so, as sympathetic as I am towards Amber's position, I have to say it is indeed not worth saving, and that we should not spend another dime on it unless it is to take it down and remediate the property.
One of the things that we heard tonight from Mr. Ringelberg was a question about the easement. We have heard in our workshop meeting, question about building authority versus parks versus board. John's here tonight. I don't know if we've got a clear answer on some of those questions. And as our counsel, before we get in any further, I'd like to hear if you think there's anything we need to look further in before we vote to make sure, just like in the FOIA appeal, that whatever vote is taken, and I think it's pretty obvious where it's going, but whatever vote is taken 100% correctly and therefore unassailable from whoever is disappointed.
Could I add to your statement? His comment regarding the Conservancy saying that we're not allowed to take it down bothers me. I mean, it would be like an unfunded mandate. And I want to make sure that indeed our parks individual is correct and that the Conservancy has said, no, you can either restore or demolish. That I would like resolved, because Conservancy can then go ahead and step up and pay.
Yeah, so I spoke with Ron earlier today about this. I haven't had the opportunity to see the conservation easement, so I couldn't comment on it. We've heard two diverse views, but you make two competing views. But you raise a good point, and the Madam Supervisor does as well. Okay, well, thank you. The long and short of it being, without respect to what is eventually done, whether the house is taken down, whether a different course is taken, I think an appropriate course of action would be for you guys to ask us to do a legal written opinion where we can have all the documents and come back with you at your next meeting, in a closed session if necessary, to discuss the legalities of it, in addition to the conservation easement aspect of it. There's I don't want to call it like a weirdness, but there's something that needs to be explored about the different entities' authority with respect to who gets to do what. This is coming from the Parks Commission. It's made its way via resolution over to the building authority. A good question has been raised about the township board's ultimate decision power to demolish it. I would really encourage you not to move to demolish it tonight. If that was in the cards, I would point you in a different direction. I think it makes sense to give Ron and I a few weeks to be able to come up with it won't be a long thing, but a short written opinion that just addresses the easement, sort of the situation about who gets to control what. The fact that you guys have an elected Parks Commission, I think is a little bit unique, and it operates under its own statute that we want to take a look at. So I would think that we would look at the building authority statute. We would look at the Parks Commission statute, the easement, and just kind of come back with sort of a recommendation about who's in charge of what and who, that ultimate decision could come from. The township board, will likely ultimately be responsible for funding whatever that decision is. But there's kind of a logistics issue here that I think we need to work out.
Our next, Pat?
you probably can't answer this, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. What difference would it make? And I'm not being facetious. In other words, if, say perchance that you actually find a clause or something in the easement, conservation easement that says, actually, we can't tear down the residence. And the board says, fine, we're gonna board it up and we're gonna let it fall down. I mean, in other words, we vote to not fund it at all. Now we sit on a liability. I mean, we're damned if we do and danged if we don't.
I suspect, oh, go ahead.
Just in my 2 cents on your question, if John were to come back and say, this is what the easement says, and we were to have a limitation, then we actually get a written confirmation from the Conservancy that they'll waive that off so that there is no issue there. That'll bring it back to us. If John comes through and says, you know what, it actually is no longer with building authority, but went back to parks, then it's the parks that would vote to take it down. That's the question, because I looked at the resolution where parks sent it over, and one of the questions that was raised is that, did it go over effectively? Did it need to come back to parks? That's what I say. I think it's very clear from this board, from the comments made tonight, we know which way it's going to go. I just want to make sure that it's done correctly. And if that means we do it at November 1st, then I'm willing to wait until November 1st at what is our scheduled work session. But because of Ron's schedule and things like that, I would look at handling this on November 1.
Could we forward that a motion? Could we consider a motion that says absolutely no money be spent until this decision is made?
The motion.
I make a motion that absolutely no money be spent on the house for any means at all, mitigation of asbestos, whatever, until we get a decision, so that we don't creep down the road with repairs.
I'll support that.
So we have a motion, and I think I heard Johnson first on that one. That no money be spent on the house until a decision is made. Any further discussion on that motion?
I think that you just might want to throw in a caveat. It's a very strong language, a caveat like accepting emergency. I don't know. I just wanted to say that out loud in case there's like actually some kind of emergency, and you would spend the money anyways at that point. But I don't know. Just food for thought.
It's your motion, Pat.
Trying to define an emergency. If an emergency comes up, it has to come before the board. Whether it's done by phone vote or whatever, it still has to.
Phone vote,
Yeah.
open meetings,
Then we have an open meeting. Can you call a special session?
18
18
hours.
hours notice.
That,
I'm not planning on spending any money, Pat. I'll sit back and wait. I'm not gonna spend any money unless there's whatever that emergency could be. That
Yeah, I mean,
some terribly unsafe condition.
okay,
Then I'll jump in and do it anyway, like he just said. But I'm not gonna spend any money.
It's probably overkill. I just wanted to say it because it's like the way that it was said, it was just what's such absolute, black and white.
I stand
mhm.
and
So we have a motion and support. Any further discussion on the pending motion? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Now, okay, Jim.
Allowed to have a little more discussion. So on that whole question of the easement and are we allowed to take the house down or not? And with all due respect to Mr. Weiss, did I get that name right?
Please.
Oh,
Please,
sorry.
Wingerberg.
What was, but not.
Oh, sorry.
Neither here nor there. Yeah.
Mr. Ringelberg. I have a copy of an easement, which looks like it's an official copy. I don't know if there's two different easements floating around. If you have something different than this.
It's read section 5B and 5C.
Okay, right. So
Steve,
So there's a map that shows the different, there's agricultural park area, the whole Heiser property. There's a natural area, 62 acres. The agriculture is 40 acres, and the residential area has got the hash marks, and that's where the house is. That's a small area. So if I go to this document, number 5B, right to maintain, replace, or remove existing structures. The owner, which is Laketown Township, as I understand it, retains the right to maintain, renovate, and replace the existing structures within the residential area, which is where the house is, and agricultural/park areas, and within the guidelines below. Any expansion or replacement may not substantially alter the character or function of the structure unless the structure will be used for permitted public park purposes in the agricultural park area. Then the next paragraph, to me, is clear as day. The owner retains the right to remove or demolish homes and buildings in the residential and agricultural park areas.
yeah,
That seems so clear to me. Am I reading that wrong, or is there?
if you look. Okay, wait a minute.
Okay.
Steve. It is this type of question that's why I want to have the lawyers take the time and read it and bring us back a written opinion. That, and if they confirm exactly what you just read, fantastic.
And I'm not an attorney, but boy, does that seem clear to me.
And I think that, and sometimes you see, you know, not to spoil it, but you know, sometimes you'll see it in these kind of conservation easements that like, they want to be able to maintain it as a home, as a residence, and it's like the ability to have the house, but then be able to have the conservancy and do updates to the house and like have someone continue to live there. So it's not unusual, but like, we'll take a look at the may versus the must. You know, I'm just looking at this right now. You know, you've identified the language that we'll be looking at and that we'll bring back to you.
Yep.
This goes back to the question I asked, I think, in workshop, you know, who does this belong to? Whose lap does it fall onto? And I thought, I could be wrong, I thought somebody said the building authority, but that's neither here nor there. But the other question I have is, would we have gone to these lengths if we chose to build the Heiser house? The same that what we're doing now, we're getting an attorney?
I can only speak for myself and I'd say yes. That's just my opinion, but yes.
Because it didn't seem to be in the cards until now, is what I'm saying.
So I would like to make a motion that we table it until November 1st, so we can hear from the lawyer. And have a written argument on whether who has the say here. I don't know who has the say. I think that seems fuzzy, whether it's parks or the township board.
Support to move it to November 1. Yeah, we got a pending motion, so.
Okay.
I'll support just to see where this goes.
We have a motion to move it, to table it only to November 1st. So that we can receive a written opinion of council, just to make sure that we're doing everything correctly.
That's the only reason.
I thought there were two reasons. Are we going to see?
Your motion.
Okay, I'm sorry. To see who has, whether this is the Parks Department or the Parks Board or the Township Board? Do we have clarification on that? Because
Right. I think the subject line of the opinion is going to be authority to demolish, and a subsection of that will address the conservation easement, and the second section will talk about the sort of tripod we have here of the Township Board, the building authority, and the Parks Commission. And you know, just a brief overlay of the statute once we get a chance to sort of dig into it. I don't expect it will take more than a few hours, and we'll have something written that we can produce, and if necessary, Ron will be there on November 1st, can go into closed session and discuss the logistics. I would, really encourage, it sounds like we're going that route, but just to see what the, it's the lawyer says, like, we want to do it the legal way. We want to follow the statute. We want to make sure we reach our whatever the township board's objective is, in a manner that is permitted by law. That's the only way that we would ever, recommend anything. So that's the route that we're going to be taking this.
So we have a motion on the table to request the opinion and come back on November 1 to review the opinion.
How does that motion impact the motion that Pat made?
But it doesn't.
Okay,
The motion on money is a freestanding motion on its own.
that one stands. This is a different motion. Just want to clarify.
I'll support.
All right, so we still have a motion from Amber, support from Pat to table until a time certain, which is November 1. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we'll come back on November 1. John, you got your marching orders on that.
Yep, thank you.
That takes us down to our citizen comments for the second time tonight.
Not sure who handed me this, but do you? Okay. All right.
I'll email you.
And we'll get a copy. Yep, thank you.
I'm a resident of Laketown Township. I'm really confused right now. A person made a motion not to spend any more money on the Heiser House. And then the second motion was to spend money on the Heiser House. Super confusing what you guys are doing. Let's not spend any more money, but then let's pay lawyers to figure out what's going on to the Heiser House. I don't understand how this works. I'm totally not a lawyer. But I don't know what's going on. And then he said something about a closed session. Is this a personnel issue? I thought that was the only reason we would have a closed session was if it was a personnel issue. Anyway, I don't expect the question answered. I know how this works. Or we could just check in on this in like 20 years. It'd probably be better.
Anyone else in the room tonight?
Me again. Karen Massengill. And I am so glad you read that. Thank you very much. Though I respect my neighbor behind me, I will also forward to you guys all the information from the Land Conservancy, Chris Long, regarding that. I do appreciate a little bit the attorney looking into this. And I would hope if we're paying 2.5 hours with the questions that are on the table, if you want to talk about municipal. Number one, Parks Authority legally by law, do they have control of the parks or not? Is the board just in charge of the budget of the parks? And then third, if you have 5 extra minutes as a resident, if possible, I would like to know the relationship between the board and the building authority. How does that org chart follow? Does the building authority report to the board who is responsible for all actions from the building authority comes from the behest of our board? The second thing is I will strongly not support going behind closed doors for this. And I think that with as hot as this has been, all residents should be able to see whatever motion, whatever recommendation that our attorney that we're paying for produces to you.
Anyone else in the room tonight? Good evening.
Good evening. Kevin Elfrink. I live at 6181 Farmview Drive. My thought is with the building authority, if you have the lawyer here, my understanding is 2 of the 3 members are not residents of Laketown. How is the building authority? How are 2 members out of 3 of our building authority not citizens? And how are they allowed to make our decisions for us when they don't live here, they don't pay taxes here? So maybe if you're spending money on a lawyer, make them rich.
Sorry, because I didn't do my 2 minutes on top of that. not only were two members not a resident, the chair of the building authority was also the chair of the Parks Commission. Our number one public employee, Al Mishkin, was on he's one of the appointees for the building authority. Why is he not a silent give advice? Why is he allowed to vote when the clerk and the treasurer cannot? He's the office, he's the top public one. He also was the one that suggested the appointees. It's all a mess. You got a big mess.
Good evening again.
I, um, I would like to, agree with a representative, a resident that said that they would like to have ARPA funds go for Fell in Love Farm. That is something we have been asking for a couple of years, maybe a year and a half. But I would really like to have you put that also on November's agenda to give some funds, ARPA funds, which have been distributed to dozens of people. People right here, not right here as residents, but in the office and all kinds of people. So I would like to request, please, Fell in Love Farm is an amazing little gem nonprofit right here in our town, and they really could use the funds. You have given money to a whole bunch of other nonprofits, so I would really like to have you have that on the agenda in November. I mean, discuss it in whatever you have to do, but please give them some funds. Fell in Love Farm, and I know you have letters from the owners. So that's what I wanted to say, because Mary Jo, I believe, gave us support for that, and I'd like to, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Simmons, 6477 Maple Lane. Knew I should have brought popcorn. Jeez, I'd like to know how long your company has been representing the township. It's been a considerable amount of time. I suspect you were part of the Land Conservancy information from the beginning. I know two of you at least have been on the Parks Board. I know Michelle's been a part of it for a long time. Are you really trying to tell us that you haven't read the Conservancy and you don't understand the language of it? And I find it interesting that you have a representative of your attorney's office here tonight to take care of this little problem that you're having. I find it interesting you didn't have counsel here when you went ahead and purchased a home that wasn't authorized. The money wasn't authorized by this board. Got to remember to bring popcorn next time.
One more quick thing. Also, we've been in this town 23 years, and honestly, I pretty much know that conservative papers backwards and forwards too. So believe me, we as residents have read it and we know what it says in it. And what to us is very, very important is that first page that the Heisers wanted. They want just this park to be a park, an open space. That's the main thing that they wanted it. And again, in our recommendations of letters we've written, please keep the paths clear, do things like that, but not renovating. And again, please know, we're not a bunch of stupid, idiot residents. We've looked that thing over backwards and forwards for many years. So, and again, for you to know that. Thank you again.
Anyone else in the room? Jim, anybody online? Oh, Jeremy?
Oh, once again, can't get enough of the microphone here. Jeremy Van Hoven, 4206 Vandermeulen Road. Only one thing I just want to make sure, when you actually reach out to the Land Conservancy, I'd be curious to see if they actually have any other properties that they actually contend with that actually have a house on them. And if they do, how do they handle it? Because that's the only one thing I'm kind of curious about. I mean, they do have another parcel here in Laketown, and that's right off Audubon Road, right back by Indian Pipe. That's just dirt. This is just a unique place because not only did it come with all this property, but it also came with a home and all these other outbuildings. So when you reach out to the Land Conservancy, ask them and see, is this the only one? Is it unique? And if it's not, I'd really like to see how they're handling situations such as ours, because it's different. And I guess that's the only little thing I wanted to add, just to kind of look into that, because it's curious, Land Conservancy, not Home Conservancy. But thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Anybody online? All right. I'd like to just say one thing, and that's, this has been a hot topic for quite a while, and I want to compliment everybody that made comments tonight on how even they were and how just
Civil.
Pretty so.
So I really appreciate that. And because if we can't talk with each other, as opposed to always talking at or to each other, we don't get very far. But when we can talk with each other, which I think we did tonight, we do better. So I want to thank everybody for that. And with that, Jim?
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
All right. We have a motion to adjourn and support. Do we have all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody. Yeehaw.